What's going on, y'all? This podcast is brought to you by Modern Roots Life. Modern Roots Life is a Christian-owned and operated company, and it's bringing real health back to its roots. They offer powerful, all-natural health supplements such as beef liver, cod liver oil, beef tallow, magnesium, and mineral-rich salts, all sourced the way God intended. Clean, simple, and from the earth. So whether you're looking to boost your energy, restore mineral balance, or just fuel your family with real nourishment, Modern Roots Life has got you covered. Guys, in this community, we're trying to get healthy in our mind, in our body, and our spirit. So don't neglect your health. If you want more information, check out modernrootslife.com and check the link in my description. You know, people often ask me how they can support me. Well, I think it's pretty cool if you can support me by supporting the people who support me, and you get something in return. And being healthy is a pretty good return. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Ancient Roots of Life and Wellness podcast. Once again, I'm your host, JT. And as always, I got my co-host with me, Josh Truex of Modern Roots Life. What's going on, Josh?
Hey, brother. Nice to be here.
And we got a special guest. Actually, our first guest on the podcast today is Topher Gardner. Goes by Biocharisma online. What's going on, Topher? How you doing?
It's good to be with you both today.
Yeah, nice to have you, brother.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we felt like this would be a good collab because we talk a lot about health stuff, but we talk about ancient stuff. We talk about everything on this podcast. We talk about biblical stuff. And Topher has a lot of expertise in kind of maybe the mechanics potentially of the old world and some of the knowledge of like health products too, like Josh does.
Yes, it's something that I've been really into for quite a while. So I'm so glad that it's now like becoming more of a talked about subject on YouTube.
Yeah, I want to get right into it. So it's funny, I was just saying that, you know, I obviously get tons of videos for JT's Mixtape because that's what that show is. And sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I should play this for Ancient Roots podcast because it's a little more health related. And I did. So I was like, dang it, I played this other video for JT's Mixtape. But I wanted to discuss it with, especially with Josh and Topher, it was showing, you know, the idea that you take some kind of a stake or pole and you wrap copper wire around it and you put it next to like a plant you're trying to grow in your garden.
Tartarians knew all about that. You're creating an antenna between the earth and the ether. The ether is everywhere above the ground. So there's an electrical connection, but it's so subtle, the plants can understand it. When you wind a copper wire around the stick 8 or 10 times, stick one end into the soil, antennas sticking up, the microorganisms, millions, billions of them in the soil, react positively. It feeds them, it energizes them, and because this is happening, you get a much greater rate of growth, more lush foliage, more fruit, and you can test it by putting these copper wires into the soil and then watching what happens to your plants.
You were saying, Topher, you do that.
Yeah, it's called Electroculture. And the results of it are amazing. I mean, I just did an interview with Alpha Vedic with Bearlando this last week. He's somebody on the West Coast that does it. And then I have a good friend in Kentucky, Chris Winters of the Fertile Current. They do it, and they're prolific with everything that they grow. Like the things that they grow, they sell commercially. And so Chris was telling me on his farm, he's been able to reduce the amount of plants that he actually grows every year by 400% and get the same output. So anybody that farms or gardens to say, okay, instead of having 16 tomato, plants to give me X amount of tomatoes, all I need is 4. Using electroculture and good soil and using biochar, it's just like, it's one of those things where when your yields go up that high, you end up having to do a lot less work.
So you're saying you do less plants?
A lot less.
Yeah.
You don't need as many plants to get as amount of the fruit from the plant.
Right.
Man, I gotta try this because I've done electroculture just in Branson. We did just basic stuff through the back of it, and it definitely showed like, I don't want to say like double or triple, but it seemed like that. You know, I'm not even trying to lie when I say that. It literally seemed like it was unbelievable, the amount of extra growth you got. I taught myself through the internet and YouTube back in the day how to do pretty much every kind of hydroponic.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done pretty much everything from ebb and flow to.
You're not telling on yourself now, are you, Josh? The hydroponics.
I know all my friends in Vegas, they would come because Vegas got legalized for cannabis, and they'd all come in and be like, "Man, like you have like a $10,000 type cannabis grow set up in your second bedroom, but it's like you're growing strawberries and you got a banana plant. You have a banana plant? I had a banana plant going in Vegas, like in the middle of it. Everybody's like, "Is that a banana plant? Like how? We're in Vegas. There's no moisture, but." I wonder if you combine it, because I had for example, I had a 4x4 foot grow tent, and I had a tomato plant in there in what's called deep water culture, which is just like a 5-gallon bucket with an aerator, and you just have a net cup in there and you grow it, and then the roots would get like this big. It'd fill the entire bucket on one plant. It's amazing to watch. You open that bucket up and you're like, what? But the tomato, I ended up having to take all the other plants out of it because it took over the entire tent. And it was a cherry tomato plant, which are supposed to be like yay big, right? And it ended up being, we're not throwing up gang signs here either. So
I was going to say, you're gonna get exposed here soon now. Sorry about that.
So they were coming out like golf ball size, or bigger for the cherry tomatoes. And it had like upwards of 300 tomatoes on one plant at all times. It was just massive. I was giving them away like crazy. Everybody, the lettuce we grew in that and everything everybody just said like it makes regular plants you get at the store taste like garbage. And then the electroculture side of it though, because hydro, you already get like 3-to-1. It seems like it's literally like they say the rule is on average 33% less time and 33% more growth. And then, what is it? 30 and 33% less water that you use.
Of course, it's 33 too, Josh.
Yeah, go figure. Yeah, whatever. Who knows? Is it? So they'd say those numbers or whatever. But basically, hydro already has like exponential growth when it comes to it. It's a significant increase from certain just your average soil techniques and stuff. You can do it like that if you do it right, though. Certain soil techniques are pretty amazing when people get into adding like amendments and stuff to the soil too. But so I'd be really curious. I've never combined the electroculture with it, and I'm literally about to. I thought we just moved out of our shop here on property into a bigger shop in town, praise Abba. But now I have that whole facility in there with the whole back inventory room where I was thinking of either doing a sauna, but I told my wife, I'm like, I'm just going to have them build the doors in there, and I'm just going to go in there and grow a bunch of indoor grows for like hydroponic and have all of our herbs just nonstop throughout the year, all of our basic stuff that we want to keep, like have a couple tomato plants going, have some peppers in there, and just like some diverse basic crops and stuff. You have berries year round, stuff like that, which actually it still can throw you off. I'm a big believer in seasonal and regional, but if you can grow a strawberry in the winter, your body might freak out and like be like, how'd you do that? But I'd still, if it grew from the air that you have and it's local and stuff like that, it could actually, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't still be like the best chemistry for your body. If following the seasons would probably be better or whatever like that. But anyways, having year-round herbs and different things like that, man, we've had that in years past, but I haven't had it in many years. And so I definitely think electroculture is the way that people are doing all the frequency-based everything where they're going up into the atmosphere and they're doing drones and stuff and pulling the frequency. Even one that I want to do on my property is tapping your trees as like a solar panel, and you can pull the current right off of them using them as a solar panel. That's one thing that I wanted to get into. But you combining some of these techniques, I feel like with what's going on, my goal is eventually to have a warehouse that has indoor outdoor growing. So be through the concrete into the ground, in the soil, inside, but fully controlled where the sunlight comes through, but the air, the water, everything like that is completely pure as it can get. And I don't think short of that you can go back to creation anymore. It's just, with everything that's going on atmospherically and stuff that we all talk about, we know it's just, everybody's like, oh, it's 100% grass-fed, or oh, it's this and it's free of pesticides. It's like, well, pesticides are full of metals and different things like that, and glyphosate and stuff like that. And it's like, well, what is the air filled with anymore these days? It's like you got aluminum that lands on plants, and it takes plants like spinach and feminizes them, turning them into an iron-laden plant versus the copper that it used to be. Like when Popeye used to swell up and flex, it was a copper spinach that he was eating back in the day. Now it is a feminized iron-laden plant, which really affects our metabolism and stuff like that, which is interesting because the angels are always depicted as iron bodies. And I
Yeah, right.
always was,
Yeah. The
and
stars are supposedly having iron cores.
yeah, and Messiah is depicted as what? Brass, which is mostly copper. So you would
While
look at
also
like,
having a rod of iron.
yeah, rod of iron. Yeah, that's interesting that it has well, dang, think of that. That's crazy if you think of like how the angels are used, or like the Assyrian, my rod of my wrath, like if you think about, he's uses those fallen nations and entities too to always like do his bidding, like with certain things to go out and handle his stuff. So it's kind of in a way. But I was just saying, you see these things that are depicted in the movies where the angels are like in this iron kind of form, and then you think we're copper, and the way
Like
that
the Transformers. Like the Transformers.
yeah, exactly. So many things that you realize that they show a very like a harsh contrast between like the black and white of our bodies being like copper based than the iron of the angels and stuff. And then if you think of like the things that they do, whether it's blood or this or that, the iron in versus the copper, it would be the kind of different type of thing there. So I don't know if you have to cut that out. Sorry, forgive me if you do.
No worries. You know what? I want to ask you, Topher, about this, because this was the kind of the theory I was floating about that when I thought, okay, so that's cool, because the way the video was presented was this was like Tartarian tech, and I'm not sure that it's exactly that, but I couldn't help but think if you do kind of consider like the old world architecture with the Antiquitech that's on these buildings, you have copper roofs, you have all these spires. And did you ever see that documentary? I want to say it was like a 5-part. It was by that guy Erwan, and
Yes.
it was The Lost History of Flat Earth.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you know how like when he was talking about how that you had the Antiquitech on the buildings, the the landscape or the city central planning was based almost like an electrical grid.
Right.
There was the component of the water, and at a lot of these really old estates and buildings, they had these massive gardens that were all in super geometric, beautiful patterns. And so I was wondering, do you think it's possible that instead of like setting up like one little spike in your like next to your tomato plant, what if the building is like your antenna for the ether that goes into the ground? What do you think about that idea?
I have 100% knowing that that's true.
Yeah.
The very first construction medium that I got into with domes is known as super adobe. And when you build super adobe, it's flexible form rammed earth construction. So you see those nowadays, people show all those videos on Instagram of the 3D printed house where they do like one row and another row and another row. Well, the super adobe construction is that. It's just humans are the ones that are printing it, right? And so what you do in between each one of those rows is you lay down two, lines of barbed wire. And the 2 lines of barbed wire create what's called lateral adhesion, so you have good shear strength. And I was on top of one of the first domes I was building. I think it was like my 5th dome. And we were only like 10 or 11 feet up. So that was like 25 rows. And I was looking at it, and I was looking at the barbed wire sticking out. And I was somebody that was into remote control cars as a kid. So I had wound my own motors. I had, played with speed controls. I had like a cursory knowledge of electricity and batteries. And I was looking at it and I was like, if I'm 24 rows up and I've already used, 4,000 feet of barbed wire, because 2 lines of the circumference of a 24-foot diameter dome, I was like thinking of it as just a big coil.
Yeah, I was going to say.
well, the coil was insulated by the earth, because the earth was bauxite clay, which is aluminum silicate. And I was just like, this is a massive earthen battery. By the time I get to the top and put the cupola on this, it'll be over 20 feet tall. Well, that's just say 6 meters. That's 600 volt difference between the top and the ground. If you had the wherewithal never to break that line of barbed wire, in the way I was doing it, you break the barbed wire each row. But if you had just kept that coil going and then had it, just terminate up in the top of the cupola, say with a copper roof,
yeah,
you would have constant voltage potential. And
yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness. And that's what really, I have a bunch of videos on my Instagram where I show the whole notion of, they're called Peltier coolers or thermoelectric coolers. It uses a different type of way of dealing with temperature differential to generate electricity so you can have it do work. But my house in Costa Rica, that's what I did. I would have like a thermal mass heater that I would set up. I'd put these 1 volt Peltier coolers on it. I'd hook them in series. I'd hook 12 of them in series, and I would have 12 constant volts of electricity with no moving parts. I think all the old world, I think the Antiquitech, I think all the heating, none of it was done with wood. I think all those, quote unquote fireplaces were just literally that. They used dissimilar metals. They usually had their ground in their cisterns, which is very interesting. That makes you think of the cathedrals. But they'd have their ground in this perfect cylinder that was their I just used the word. It was their water storage in their basement cistern. And then, you go 4 or 5 stories up, you have 50, 60 feet of difference. And then you have this beautiful copper ornamental roof where you have these weather vanes, that they say.
You have an angel, as Josh mentioned, like you have like an angel, like reaching up to heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're talking about a couple thousand volts of electrical potential that if you knew where to route it and where to put resistance, you put resistance to voltage, you get amps. You get work done. And I really think when you see the cross sections of a lot of these old buildings, I think one of the reasons why they'll only show you elevations of old world buildings is because if they actually showed you blueprints, you would understand it's a machine.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of the floor plans, and I want to say that in that documentary, they did show you, and they looked just like schematics of some kind of a machine.
They're a machine.
That's exactly what they look like. And of course, one of the main components with like the idea of how all this stuff works together is the water.
Right.
So of course, when you see all these old world cities, they always have fountains. So they always typically have some kind of a bell or something. So you have bells, you have water, and I couldn't help but think, so you always have fountains around all this stuff.
And can I give you some insight to that too?
I was going to just say, like, but what if the Antiquitech is harnessing the stuff and it's putting it into the water? So not only are you getting the grounding from the building going into the ground, but the water that you're watering all the plants with is also getting charged.
Yeah, it's structured for the whole time.
It's not only structured, but there's another thing. The very first, like what they tell us was that there was this scientist named Lord Kelvin, and Lord Kelvin made this lightning machine in 1870 something because he was observing how lightning occurs out there. And then that's how they started the scientific, cognoscenti at the time started to understand how lightning worked, was because of this temperature differential thing. Well, when you look at what a Lord Kelvin lightning maker is, it's these 2 droppers where they drop just a single drop of water, and they go through 2 coils, or just 2 rings, you could say, and then you cross with a conductor to the other side to the pickup, an insulated pickup at the bottom. And what occurs is the charge starts to increase exponentially, because what you're doing is you're forcing like to touch like, So if you have a positive charge on one side, the positive charge on the one side wants to go to a negative, but if you're forcing it to a positive on the other side, you start to get exactly what we experience in nature with updrafts.
Is it like friction? Like the things are like opposing each other?
Well, listen to the term that they use. They call it static electricity, but there's nothing static about it.
Yeah, it's always moving, right?
It's always moving.
That's crazy.
It's creating an electromagnetic, the differential. So there's this crazy thing that occurs when you force positives together or negatives together in charging. You create a third, and they call it the scalar. So we don't need to get in the weeds with that. But that charge, you get lift, you get levitation. Some people would call it anti-gravity, but we know like gravity is a theory.
Anti-buoyancy.
or supreme buoyancy or levitation, right? And so this charge, this pickup, as you get that positive pickup and everything like that, what he would do is he would put this, sometimes he would put what they didn't call it a Faraday cage at the time, but it was something similar to a Faraday cage, and he would have all this electrical charge just from dropping water. So when I saw this, and I made these things, I made a bunch of them when I lived in Costa Rica. I would say, I think a lot of the fountains that were used weren't just structuring water like you're saying. I definitely think they did that, but I think it was once again a field generator.
Mm-hmm.
Because the elegance at which these people were building with how we know that they were using geopolymers and with how we know that they were using a lot of piezoelectric substances that were, transducing vibration into electricity. I think their use of electricity was much more elegant than what we use.
Yeah, I can believe that.
That's a good way of putting it for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess you said there's just, to me, the way they did things, it had a aesthetic value, but it obviously had a practical value. And I think that's the point they're leaving out, is that you don't put that many spires and columns and arches in something unless it has some kind of a use, because it's kind of like it seems that's what the buildings look like. They look excessive, like they look way
they were
overbuilt.
functional.
And I do like that idea that when he was talking about that thing, the Arc de Triomphe, so all those old kind of columns and arches, they're all full of like copper and iron inside of them, and then they have concrete on the outside of them. So yeah, like where does that metal go into the ground, and like what's the practical value of that? I mean, it seems like
gold and,
and it seems like I did really like that idea, and I don't know if anybody's done further research on it. Was the idea that in a lot of these old buildings, they kind of have like a I don't know what the right word is, but it almost look like a cabana of some kind of octagon, some kind of
Always
area
as a generator. Yeah,
it was like, it looked like did that once house a machine?
it didn't need to.
Tied it all together, because it just seems like there's just empty spots in here, and so they might put like, I don't know, like a band there, something like the band plays in that spot in the.
I don't even think it needed to.
It didn't. It definitely. I don't think you're wrong with that either. I definitely don't think it needed it, especially with resonance and everything they were doing. It's just there. That's it's like the ether and the way that that's spoken about. It's probably why Tesla, if it's really a real figure, was taking stuff, and why they were just systematically destroying old tech, Tartarian tech, all that stuff, or everything, just because like they were rapidly grasping like all the tech and the advantages of the old world. But kind of like you said, crystalline structure precedes like the energy that they're going to put out. There's also like the different things. I think you were about to get into like scalar and square waves and all the different things that you can generate just with different electrical, like PEMF is a big thing for people getting into that nowadays. So there's a lot more awareness for it and stuff like that. But it definitely is pretty awesome to see how they would take something and it would just be there, from the fact that they would, obviously it takes a certain thing. They had to get, a lot of it seemed like there was a certain height that was involved, and we've already seen that where people are recreating that with the drones and everything, but then it was a right conductor. And then they were, the way that they transferred it down, that's awesome to think of the way you thought of the coil. You just like put this visual image in there talking about like, I was like, what, the second you said it was broken and it wasn't connected at each layer, I was like, oh, that would have been, it would have been the best like inhibitor for EMF and different things. Cause
I have so many nerds that are interning under me. They're like, let's not break it. I'm like, find a 5,000 yard long piece of barbed wire. We'll do it.
Can you just tie it back together? I mean,
can you splice it together?
No, it doesn't work the same way, especially because, the galvanized wire that we have to use, it's not the greatest conductor. So every time you would split it and tie it, it's not worth it, especially since I have to keep certain budgets. Like if somebody was like, hey, this is an unlimited budget, use your biochar in the mix, use the geopolymers, let's make this whole thing a big battery, then I'll do it. But I haven't had the budgets to do that just yet.
That'd be cool.
Let me ask you guys a question. Is this, I know I remember seeing this picture a long time ago, like on, bounced around. But like, what the heck is that? Is that kind of like what we're talking about? Something?
Man,
that's a generator.
Yeah, for sure. That looks.
So
like,
a better way of saying it. Can I let me just jump in real quick with this, because the word generator is being totally hijacked by the world's battery market. So ever since they've introduced these 1 to 10 kilowatt batteries, they call them generators, and it drives me nuts because they're not generators, they're just batteries. So what the old world had were atmospheric transducers. A transducer is something that converts one thing into another thing. So I think when we were closest to the time of Jesus Christ, I think there was more electricity in the atmosphere. There was obviously a lot less metal salts, if you know what I mean, in the air also. So because there was a higher charge in the sky, they just transduced it. They just figured out these antenna arrays, these different, configurations. They got very elegant with them. They knew the whole science of charge separation. The ground is negative, the sky is positive. They created these really tall spires so that, they would reach up to the heavens, per se, where there was a higher potential. And then the geopolymer that they were building the buildings out of, or the red brick that they were building the buildings out of, those were the batteries. The actual wall. Like, why would you make a wall, 4, 5, 6 feet thick? I get yelled at.
Are you talking about like, especially when you're talking about like the those star forts?
No, not even star forts. You go to
the star forts are like, they're mega thick, right?
No, you go. I'm just talking about more recent stuff. I think the star forts were pre, but like I'm talking about some of these structures that you're showing, whether they're cathedrals or city halls, like Philadelphia City Hall, or these great train stations or whatever. All these types of buildings, you're dealing with walls that are like 4 feet thick. Or
the columns. The columns are like 6 feet in diameter. They're like super hefty.
So the reason why they got rid of the bells, I think, is because a lot of those substances that they built those buildings out of were piezoelectric, meaning it converts. Like, each one of us is speaking into a speaker. When we speak into this speaker, there's a little crystal in there that's piezoelectric. That piezoelectric crystal will start to vibrate, and that will send a signal, that will send an electrical signal down, and that will be converted by the computer and send the data out. Well, imagine the building was piezoelectric and it had tons of mass. And then every hour on the hour, you had a bell that was tuned to a certain frequency range. Let's just say that frequency range was a harmonic of the actual substance that made that building. You ring the bell, bing, 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 and before you know it, your building's charged and you have heat in your building. They got
us tied to like a clock. They put a clock up there and say that's what the bell's for every hour, and it's really charging.
I mean, you look at these buildings; it's just really hard to, like, once you see it, to not think these things had something to do with conductivity.
No,
you think about too, like, if you think about Millennial Kingdom taking place, and these were actually built during it. Say it was like Abba and Messiah. Basically, Messiah comes down here, leads the whole thing to just clean up the world and everything. Built a bunch of structures that literally point and connect to the heavens to directly like transfer its energy. And I mean, it's literally, to me now, the more you guys are talking, I've never even looked at it quite like this, but it just seems like those are directly pointing into like somewhere, and maybe they knew the most potent places in the atmosphere to point these at and to locate them, as we've seen too with the pyramids and different things
they're
like that.
On some kind of, what do they call, ley lines or something.
It's
they absolutely did, man, without a doubt.
Directly connected it to the heavens, especially.
I mean,
Millennial
they all
Kingdom.
just look like such. I mean, these things just look like ancient machines.
Put the beams coming out of those spires right there with some AI, and it just looks like all of them right there connected to the heavens. I kid you not, right? Like some movie stuff.
And it's absolutely does. I mean, I guess that's the thing. It's like, it's hard to imagine that, because it seems like that's what I was saying. Like, that with the kind of the old world buildings, what you get like the Greco-Roman style basilicas, and they still look like they have tech on them, but it's a different type of tech. But then when you get to the cathedrals, these things are just like gigantic antennas. Like, the whole building looks like one, and then it's got all the little other spires on it. And it's funny, so we just actually talked about on the last JT's mixtape that's coming out, that Lincoln Cathedral in England was the biggest building in the whole world for a time. It replaced the Great Pyramid of Giza. I want to say that's about 550 feet. So this thing had a spire on it, I think, that was 60-something feet. Well, supposedly it fell down from an earthquake, which is weird since, I mean, England's not really known for their massive earthquakes, and I guess they never replaced it. But like, why would they put that massive spire on there without some kind of a a reason to do so.
Seems
right?
like those are the buildings, right?
And this
like
and so Lincoln Cathedral was supposedly built in 1072.
Oh wow, interesting number.
So with these people, so based on like what they would tell us about like the Dark Ages and things, they wouldn't even know about the Great Pyramid in Egypt back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Europeans would not have discovered it again.
Yeah.
So it's not like a situation where, at least the way we're told, is that they wouldn't be putting the spire up just to be the tallest, because what we're told is they would not have known how tall.
They had higher energy needs. That's what it was.
So the other component is it's a very practical thing, like that. Okay, yeah, that we're showing like very clear examples that through copper you're harnessing some kind of energy that's producing higher yield in your crops.
Mm-hmm.
But what about when it comes to people too?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. Like that, that's the kind of like that people think it sounds new agey, but it's like you're pulling down this energy and it is affecting the people in a positive way.
It's not new agey at all. You talk to any pro athlete that's out there today, they're getting electrocuted on the daily.
Mm-hmm.
Like I even back when I was playing over 30 years ago or whatever, we were getting electrocuted. Like if we had soreness in our muscles, they'd throw us on a stem machine.
Now they even have the right impedance for the body too. They're using the ultimate impedance on I forget what NewFit is one of them that we used to use in the bodybuilding world, where it uses the same impedance as the body. And
no, electrocution's where it's at. Because we're in a lower vibration now. We're in a lower potential. So like the more you can actually turn on your mitochondria, because the mitochondria are just there to convert all the metabolites into some sort of electrical charge, right? So if you can like kind of trick the body into saying, oh, I'm already at this electrical charge, it's been shown, like there's hundreds of studies that show that the mitochondria go, oh, I'm supposed to produce that much, and it does.
It's pretty wild to think, though. You just thinking like the cathedrals have the organs, they have the bells.
Yeah,
it seems like they're the factory for the grid that basically would take those. And you see the other buildings have them too. Obviously, I wonder if those other buildings used it for different things. So, like if they had all the copper top and everything that they had on there, like it's for heat and for different things like that. It just seems like almost like this versus the copper tops had the same purpose but a different function inside that same purpose, if that makes sense.
So that's Lincoln. There's Lincoln Cathedral, what I was talking about.
Wow,
but it's not shown.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Like I said, they built it in 1072 supposedly, but this is what it used to look like, I guess. So those towers on it had these massive spires. Which, like I said, it seems excessive. It's just for aesthetics.
Well, there's this Russian scientist named Viktor Grabevnikov, and he was very big in essentially talking about the Russian radionics. I guess you would say like their study into radionics in the 70s, and they had spires like that they put along the Russian steppe, and they were to induce weather. They were weather control. So I think a lot of times those, some people call them like a Nubian pyramid. It's a very specific angle of the cone that you make. And in Russia, they were just making them out of PVC. They weren't even doing them out of anything like any like really nice materials because they didn't have the money.
No, look at the inside of this place.
Dude,
wow.
that I'm telling you, that is God embodied in saying, here, like, come know me. Like that's.
Well, I mean, look at it. I mean, it just looks like it's got all this stuff. It's like it's got all this energy generators on the inside of it. And like, so you're sitting in the pews in this place, you're praying with all that stuff around you.
You were lit up, man.
I was going to say, like, I mean, what else? Like, what else are we looking at besides that?
Yeah, that's the craziest one I've ever seen. And the amount of that looks like a whole bunch of just like old school industry that's in there. Like a bunch of like if those things started moving and going up and down, that wouldn't even surprise me.
It almost looks like you're tapping into that thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like each person's got their own.
Yeah, hold on, and then they start praying. Can you imagine the revivals they'd have in there?
But I mean, just look at that stuff in there, man. I'm telling you, it looks like it's some kind of machine.
And I'm a professional arch builder. I build arches, vaults, and domes. And just to give anybody the idea of the complexity Just in this picture, the complexity that's seen, even if you had all the math and all the money, in today's world, that's taking you 10 years to, just that part, 10 years to execute with the same elegance. 10 years.
Yeah, there's just, it's like again, like the detail on that.
Ah, so beautiful. To think, oh, wage slaves built that.
Well, again, this was built in what people would consider the Dark Ages.
The Light Ages, JT.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's
let's
what I'm
take
saying.
it back.
Like, did it? Because that was the funny thing. We just talked about that. It was, I guess, it was the Sagrada Familia was just finished, and that took 144 years in like modern times.
And it's garbage. Like, I've been to it, and I'm like, it doesn't have anywhere even near the same feel.
Well, that's
the
what I'm saying.
stuff.
Like, compared, look at all that weird stuff on there. Oh, that's weird.
Wow. Is that like sirens and everything in there?
It's like looks like some serious demons up on there. But yeah, so that was built modern times, which again the technology is improving, we're told. And yeah, when you compare it to like this, it's like this was taller than that, and it was, it was way more beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Look at that.
If they made, and the thing is, like,
Put a couple dogs. Needs a couple dogs here.
If that was casted too, like even more impressive. If somebody made a mold and like was able to just back in the day just squirt something in there, and this building came out after they took it off, that is. It does. It seems like it's either going to pull out 1,000,000 cannons and start shooting at you, like in some like Transformer type movie, or it's like obviously like a resonant device. Like it literally looks like it's going to just pump. And look at that, sucking your thumb is.
That's weird. That's a lot of weird stuff in here, though. Look at that thing. That looks ancient. It's got some griffins on there or something.
Yeah, this has like the craziest symbolism I've ever seen, all in one kind of thing.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah,
Are
this
you
place
kidding
is
me?
absolutely incredible.
Where is this? In London or England?
So this is in
England.
Church of England Cathedral in Lincoln, England.
So it used to be connected by like Nebraska. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so that thing is pretty lit, huh? I mean, that's what I'm saying. So
that's so inspiring.
Yes, for sure.
Exactly.
Inspiring.
No, but the other thing I was talking about, so I was talking to Topher. Topher is actually the one who connected me with Dr. Narco Longa from Old World, Florida. And I know that what he's talked about on many of his own podcasts, and I've seen his appearances on things, kind of connecting Florida potentially with the Garden of Eden and some of the weird stories about Florida having, what was it? Was it Ponce de Leon was supposedly had this mythology that he was looking for the fountain of youth?
Yeah,
which
all
to
of us
me always
kids that grew up in Florida, we went on the Ponce de Leon trek into the swamp and like went to the spring. Very dangerous looking back at it, but they had us do it.
But yeah, so I was reading that book, The American Antiquities and Discoveries of the West. Longo, is amongst other people, have talked about that the gopher wood is something that's in America and it's not actually in Mesopotamia, and that's what the Bible says that the ark was built out of. Now, to play the other side of it, just because something is not available today does not necessarily wasn't available in the days of Adam and Noah. Like, the world is, I think it's almost certainly changed a lot since then. But the one point this book was making was just, it makes sense, practical sense, that we know that the Bible mentions that the ark came to rest on Mount Ararat, which is like modern day Turkey, in like the Caucasus Mountains. And so if you think about it, though, if people are trying to connect Eden to like the rivers that are now like Euphrates and Tigris, somewhere in that area, well, the Bible mentions that obviously the fountains of the deep opened up. You had the windows of heaven opened up. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. But it said that the waters prevailed on the earth for like 5 months. So you can imagine how rough it would have been when obviously everything just broke loose. And then Noah and all the animals and his family are on this boat. It makes no sense that it would only drifted a small, it's like like hundreds of miles, it would have traveled thousands of miles. So it actually does make sense. And I want to say, what is the currents? They do go from west to east.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually
It
kind of
makes
makes sense
when
that
you look at the Gulf Stream. So all of us Floridians know about the Gulf Stream, and it starts over by Tampa. It loops down. It goes past the Keys. It goes actually through the Keys, around between Cuba and Florida, and then it shoots towards essentially southern Europe. And that's what keeps, the British Isles warm. The British Isles would be frozen all the time if it wasn't for all this warm Gulf water. So I think his theory, holds water, just because, I've driven through that Florida, they call it FAG, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, that little nexus there. And I've never been to the Middle East, but it'd be hard for me to imagine that there's anywhere in the Middle East that has that swampy, yet like live oak energy, And that's where the gopher wood is. And he also points out that in the Bible, I don't know the saying, but they said that it's like the only four-headed river, true four-headed river that's known. And it's right there. It's right on that Florida, Alabama, Georgia border. And the gopher wood thing, and the whole fact that they call Arkansas Arkansas, there might be like a little pun, they might be just like poking at you saying, ha ha. Because I first heard this theory like a while back by some Mormon friends of mine, and they were talking about
the Mormons. That's what's sort of funny is like kind of doing a lot of the research we're doing now. We're like, maybe some of the Mormon ideas weren't so kooky. We made fun of them a lot for the things they were talking. Didn't they believe that the Garden of Eden was in Missouri?
Well,
New Jerusalem, they think it's going to land in the Ozarks.
Exactly.
Is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, they think that the next one's landing there. It's north of us here, not necessarily in the Ozarks. I forget what county of Missouri it is. I'm in southern Missouri now. I just found out like there was like you were allowed to shoot Mormons in this state up until like 1985 or something. Like,
oh my goodness.
Up until 1985, shoot them on sight.
Literally, they did not like the whole
guys wearing white shirts and ties riding 10 speeds.
Missourians don't play, man. They don't. But it's like it's an open carry state, and you see a lot of that. But the Mormons had some really like interesting thing. And JT, you bring this up all the time. You're talking about how when you go out west and how you love hiking out through like know. The Southwest. I think the Southwest was like the breeding, not the breeding ground, but like the ground where like the Titans had their war.
Okay.
Because that whole area it feels like it has this presence that the landscape actually doesn't support, if that makes any sense. It's like the landscape looks devastated, but there's still this massive presence there. And I've always tried
Especially New Mexico is it Paradise Mountain or whatever it is that's up there that has all the inscriptions from the Hebrew, but then also that one that has the big wall with the Castle Rock or whatever it is. It looks like a huge castle in the middle of nothing and has that big wall coming out from it that's just massive. It just sits in the middle of nothing, and it looks like it has like a Lord of the Rings, or not Lord of the Rings, like a Game of Thrones. Like, it used to be a massive castle, and then the wall like goes as far. And they have all that region too, has all the, like John Levy talks about it a lot, with all the perfectly cut aqueducts that are like laser cut for like hundreds of miles. It doesn't make any sense. But I always talk to JT. I'm glad you bring that up, because the West Coast, if you look at it from like Google Earth, it looks like a landslide went through everything from like British Columbia all the way down through the Southwest. You know, I always wonder when the continent split up. Every time me and JT talk, I think I bring it up. So I don't know, like with the way that things were placed there. Even with that, though, I still think the Florida has a good argument for it, and as well as the South is just in general. I mean, Canada used to be on many maps all the way right above Florida. Like, Canada was right there above Florida and where Georgia and South Carolina was. And then you have so many other connections like right to the west of that, where there was a massive influence. And especially too, like what you said, JT, I was big on like, you know, what brought me to the little season was America's Egypt and the Promised Land. I don't really sit on a particular side of the fence anymore with that, because I feel like I've learned a lot more not being in like a set, this is me and here's this. I think that helped me be open to a lot more things. But if you look at so many different things when it comes to the landscape. You know, the Euphrates currently is like would be Mississippi only has the 7 tributaries. But does that mean that if you had the continents together or you had all this stuff back then? I mean, I guess some of the books we're getting into with the older stuff would be to see if they talk about the Atlantic being, because it used to be called the North Ocean, and then like the what was the other ocean below it? I forget what it was called. Something to do with the islands down there. Like, I forget, but very different on the way they showed the orientation.
Well, I mean,
of,
it's
like,
very
ocean.
obvious that they could have just renamed those rivers after the other rivers. It's the same way that, you know, you can't say that, oh, you got all these biblical names in America, and somebody says, well, obviously Christians name them after biblical locations. So, like, the same thing could be said about the Tigris and the Euphrates. Of course, like I said, because they
the
don't.
Nile throws us off though big time, because the Nile is a Hebrew word in an English manuscript. That's what most people don't know, is that Nile is not an English word. It's a Hebrew word that means brooks or streams. So I don't think it ever identifies the mountains. It's literally or the river. Like when you look at
in
it
the Bible, I wanted to say it says the Great River.
Yeah, if you change it in certain translations, it's not going to say Nile the way that you look. It'll be like by the brooks or by the streams. It's literally a Hebrew word when you go into the concordance. Like Nile is actually telling you a description of brooks or streams. So it's very different when you look at it like that and go through it. Like, this is a thing people don't like sometimes get into arguments about, but why is that river listed as a Hebrew word in English manuscripts? That's like what a lot of things do in the Hebrew roots side of it, where a lot of things are put back, and it's like, why did we just insert a Hebrew word here and not in we're in
well,
because
I think it's probably because they don't know what the real name is. That's like the same way that like the Egyptians are named Egyptians because that's what the Greeks called them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's not what they called themselves. You know what I mean? So like you have a lot of this stuff comes from like Greek. It's because the oldest manuscripts in the Bible that we have are Greek. So that's where we get the names from. But even the Hebrews, like when I can't remember if we talked about it on this podcast, but like Nimrod, for instance. Nimrod's probably not his name based on
title.
What it means. Well, it's like it's a description of him. It means like rebel.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're calling him this name, but it's like that's the name the Hebrews called this king, but that's not his name. So then when you try to find his name in other manuscripts, well, he didn't exist. But it's like, you know, it's a story about these certain people, so that what they identify things are not necessarily what the world has, but then lots of history has been lost, and so we have the Bible, and then so we start identifying things that we see today based on biblical descriptions. But yeah, like the Euphrates and the Tigris, and what is it, the Gihon and is it Pihon or something like that? Pishon.
Yep.
All 4 rivers don't intersect, so it doesn't make sense, and it also doesn't make sense based on just the geography and the whole explanation of the Garden of Eden. So, I mean, but to go back to your point, Topher, though, that I think that's the one thing that people talk about when they go out west, especially if you go to a place like Sedona. It's got this energy, obviously, that people talk about the vortexes there. And it's got a vibe there. It's got a vibe out west. But there's an eeriness about it, where it's like, that's the one thing I can't help. Every time I go out there, I'm like, what the heck happened out here? I mean, that's like the whole sense you get. Like, it's an awesomeness from all the amazing vistas and sights you see out there. But there's also almost like it's like when you see the Grand Canyon, there's also something like in the pit of your stomach that's like, it's kind of scary. Like, it takes your breath away. It's like something, I mean, like, it just feels like something really bad happened here.
Yeah, something catastrophic. And I think from all I can been able to tell, like with all the military maneuvers all around the world, is they usually pick areas that it had old world devastation to do their military maneuvers as a cover. And so when they do, like, you know, all the quote unquote nuclear bomb testing in Nevada, utter BS. my family on both sides were involved in the nuclear, you know, hoax, whatever. And that's just not, like, let's just say they use that as a cover. So when somebody has any sensitivity and is trusting their own biofield anatomy when they're out in a space like that, and they're like, whoa, something happened here. You can have, you know, some plebe say, oh, they've exploded 300 nuclear bombs underground, you know, right down the street. And that's like the energetic covering. That's this way of shifting people away from actually like investigating into these things to a greater degree.
It's funny because me and Brian literally just did our stream talking about that yesterday. And I guess I was struck, because that's the whole big conversation lately, because of course, I mean, it's actually an important conversation, because if you're going to justify America go fight against Iran because they're quote unquote 2 weeks away from a nuke, and they've been 2 weeks away from a nuke since, the joke is they were written on ancient Sumerian tablets that they were 2 weeks away, way back in the day.
It's like that movie, The Money Pit.
Yeah, I
2
never.
weeks, 2 weeks.
I guess I never realized that there was no film of them dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then I don't know if you've seen this. And it was funny because I just pulled this up yesterday, and maybe I'll find it in a second. That the nuke tests in Nevada were done under the ground, so they weren't dropping bombs from like planes when they did it. So they came from under the ground, and also the pictures of the Bikini Atoll. I forgot what the two tests were. One was called Baker, and one was called something else. And so this is where, they have this small atoll, or like it's kind of like a little island thing out in the Pacific, and they had all their ships around it. And have you ever really closely looked at those videos of that?
Yes.
It looks so fake. It
is fake.
But the one thing you don't see in the video, at least maybe I'm wrong, I only saw whatever I saw, but I didn't see a bomb drop. They only started as soon as the explosion starts.
No, they do that, and they say when that question's been asked in the past, they make it sound like it dropped from like some guillotine, like, apparatus, and then they'll show these fake pictures of the wooden apparatus. They have since probably taken all that offline because it's just so laughable when you look at it. All I know is in my family, my grandfather on my mom's side was a nuclear physicist, and he told me as a little kid he was sort of an autist in a way. I asked him, I was scared to death of nuclear bombs and like the whole Cold War thing, and he's
don't worry about it.
He was like, Christopher, if they made it, they would have used it. And that made me even more scared. He was trying to say, if they made it, they can't, everybody has a quick trigger, they would have, we'd all be dead already.
That's the really interesting part about the whole story, is the fact that they were not afraid to use them in World War II. And all of a sudden now it's like, oh, that's beyond the pale. We could never do that again, because if everyone started doing it, it would be the end of the quote unquote planet.
Yeah.
But I said the funny part about that whole story, and that's what I was saying with Brian yesterday, was that, like, does anyone really care if they flatten a place with a bunch of bombs or one big bomb? Like, if their goal is to flatten a place, does it really, I mean, at the end of the day, does it really matter? And so I want to play this video first, and I'll let you finish. But I never really closely looked at this video, and I thought, I don't know, for some reason I was just cracking up just watching it, because I guess I never really looked that close. Okay, so here's what they dropped two big famous bombs, or supposedly dropped them, but they don't show a bomb drop. So this is what they call the Baker test in the Pacific, in the Bikini Atoll. Check this out. The one thing that really cracks me up about this thing is that you have this massive thing happening, and like the sea looks completely calm.
Yeah, the boats aren't moving.
And look, and if you kind of look at the background, all these clouds up here just remain the same when all the smoke dissipates. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can do it in slow motion. But the beginning of it, this looks straight out of a movie. This does not actually look like let's watch it on half speed. Like those battleships and stuff like that, they're not even moving at all.
Nothing.
You think they'd be
Nothing
bobbing?
is moving.
You think they'd be like bobbing like corks?
They absolutely would be.
They would have rolled and folded and rolled and rolled and rolled, it seems like. You know what I mean? It's like a car can roll off the side of the road with 60 miles an hour of force and like flip 50 times. And a boat that gets hit with a nuke. Why are the boats next to it, first of all?
Well,
like,
supposedly they were testing to see what they would do.
Okay, that makes sense. Even though the rest.
But I mean, but check out the clouds. Look at the clouds, and you think that with all that stuff being ejected into the atmosphere, like into the
They
sky.
don't
Like,
even move. They just stay with it right there.
that's what I'm saying. It's like this is like a matte background, bro. Am I wrong?
Yeah,
You
it's
are not
terrible.
wrong.
That's what it looks like. Because all the clouds are exactly the same. They don't even move.
And your buddy Stephen Hawkins is saying that it would vacuum the Earth inside and out if they ever, detonated what they call a nuclear bomb based on the actual physics.
Right.
of
So
it.
that's the whole thing. It's like, so what you asked your question about the ships was, because I learned this a while back when I was researching like 9/11 conspiracies, about how they created the USS New York out of steel melted down from the trade centers. They made the hull of it. Well, they had to get a special permission to name this ship the USS New York, because they stopped doing that. They started naming, I guess they might still name submarines after states, but they had to get a special permission because there used to be a USS New York, and it was, get this, it was created, it was the first day it was being built was September 11th, 1911 was when the USS New York was first like
Wow.
they started building it. So they decommissioned it sometime around World War II, and then they used it in something called Operation Crossroads. And they took all these ships they were going to not use again, and they put them around this atoll supposedly, and then they dropped these hydrogen bombs like right next to it. Well, the funny part about the story is that the ship survived both of them, both hydrogen bombs.
What crap bombs?
That's what I'm saying. It's like, you think if you have you have those ships that close to it, it's actually not going to trash the other army, the other navy you're fighting against. So eventually they had to tow it off the coast of Pearl Harbor, and they used it for target practice. So I guess regular bombs were good enough to sink it, but not nukes. So
Are you saying you need real munitions and not a fictitious story to sink a ship? Is that what you're saying?
But I mean, that's the funny part about that whole video, that you see that. And I guess if you're not really paying close attention, you're like, oh, dang, that's pretty impressive looking. But it's very similar to that guy who went on Rogan the one time and was really pointing out that when they were showing the nuke tests probably in Nevada, that they were clearly models.
Yes.
They were miniatures. And that's the same kind of thing. It's like, it's weird, like the way that they're even showing that shot. It's like the camera's very stable, and like where are the angles they're taking this film from?
They're lying. It's
Right?
a lie. You don't need to actually think about it too hard. They'll have these supersonic jets fly over us because we're near a military base here.
Mm-hmm.
The second they hit, the speed of sound, my whole house shakes. That's just
they're not allowed to do that around here. They're not supposed to, anyways, because of
Yeah, they don't do it a lot. It's probably like once a year, and you're like, whoa, what is that? And it's that, right? So it's just like, okay, now they're saying something's, 5 megatons, 10 megatons. Just so people understand, that's the equivalent to 5 tons of TNT exploding. That's going to do more than just shake, that's going to do some real damage. And these stories are just absurd. And then when all this stuff started to be pointed out, then they went to they do what they always do. They flip the script and they're like, oh, it's not so much the explosion, it's the fallout. Now when you go to look up fallout, because there's all this BS about fallout, you get all the Amazon series Fallout.
Oh,
they
yeah,
always
right,
do that.
right.
They always cover their tracks like with what people want to look up, because they know the media, whenever they release like some movie or some show or whatever, there's all the reviews of it and everything, and it pushes the real stuff way down. It's just
it does
ridiculous.
seem like that's they're clearly trying to propagandize us with that idea of fallout, because it's similar to the way that, like, Chernobyl, like everybody in America's heard of Chernobyl, when like the truth is, like, why would we have heard about this?
Right.
Because it's something to be scary. And even was it in that tsunami? Was it what part of Japan was that? Was it Yako something?
Sri Lanka?
It was Sri Lanka. It was the
No, but there was
Banda Aceh.
I want to say that there was a earthquake, or there was a tsunami that God, I forget the exact name. Obviously, I'm going to butcher some kind of Japanese word, but they had some kind of fallout related to like this natural disaster that caused some kind of a, I don't know, a leak.
Are you talking about the Fukushima? Like
yeah, Fukushima. That's right.
When
Oh,
Fukushima,
okay. I didn't say it because you said natural, so I was like thinking like, oh, like what?
Well, no, yeah, the plant didn't break down on its own. It was like some kind of a disaster happened in the area.
well,
that's
this is like a really cool lead-in, like with what I've been studying as of late, and I know both of you would be interested in this. Is so when Fukushima happened in 2011, that's when the first 3G network was put out. And when you look at all the quote-unquote radiation that hit the west coast of the United States, it's exactly the radiation map of where the 3G network was first launched. So you know how like they'll do like the reverse Bond thing in the Bond movies? They'll say, "Oh, this place has been destroyed by toxic waste. You can never come here."
Yeah.
Well, they do the opposite with us. They were like, "Oh, because of this natural disaster over here, all this fallout or all this radiation is occurring over here," when it's actually industry that's creating the radiation. Because the non-ionizing radiation that they were talking about and all of that, it was obviously, like to this day, like you can go test it, that non-ionizing radiation is from telecommunications. It wasn't from Fukushima.
It's like
that's the funny
rainbow.
thing. So Brian mentioned on the stream we did yesterday that there was a Japanese guy who lived through both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He was at both places.
Did he glow at night?
Well, not only did he not glow at night, he lived to be like 90-something years old and had a wife and kids and seemed like and you see pictures of him when he was old, he looked robust and healthy. He didn't look sick at all.
Dude, during the little season, man, they take things like this. This is uranium glass, right? Uranium glass is a glass that was, almost commonplace in the turn of the 20th century. Like if you had a nice dining set and things like that, you had this beautiful color. They have all different colors of uranium glass. People were drinking out of these things. They would go to these springs that had radium in the springs. Everybody, the convalescence homes and things like that, they were all based around radioactive material. And at that time, that was healthy. They flipped the script. The let's just call it allopathic medicine, and we know who sponsored the allopathic medicine rolls in, and all of a sudden, big bad radiation. Not only will it kill you, it will ruin everything forever and ever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
They always make an enemy out of what would benefit you. That's what the liar does.
Yeah, that's
like
interesting because especially even in that show Fallout, it's presented like the radiation is dangerous, but the way it's kind of presented is that, so obviously these evil corporations drop the bombs that destroy the places. And then the people who survive under the vaults, they're supposed to wait for a day where they call it Reclamation Day, where they're going to come back and repopulate the earth. Well, the truth is they've been lying to the people in the bunkers or in the vaults that the radiation wasn't so bad, and that people actually are living on the surface right now. So like, the very beginning of the first season comes out that Lucy comes out of the vault, which of course is interesting. Lucifer,
right,
comes out of Vault 33.
Lucius Trust. Yeah.
So then when she comes up, she's surprised that she doesn't need some kind of a suit or anything. You can survive on the surface. So, I mean, it's kind of like, it's almost like a little bit of an tell. And I know that I played the other week on Mixtape. I want to say your friend Matt from Cultivate Elevate was talking about the radium fireplaces.
Right.
And then, through the video, he goes on to show that some guy eats plutonium.
Yeah, it's Galen Windsor.
I literally was going to bring that up. I'm glad you said that because that's like my favorite video to just send people when they get on the subject.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, so of course we were saying that pretty much everything is radio, quote unquote radioactive, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's dangerous. Like the levels, because even somebody was saying that porcelain will actually set off a Geiger counter, like a porcelain toilet, porcelain toilet. And so this is my wild theory, and I said I don't know. I'm not saying I'm married to it, but I thought it was an interesting idea. Is like what about the idea of like the radium fireplace So you have this material called radium. And I thought, like, what if it kind of did work like a microwave? You know what I'm saying? Like that, you know, a microwave, you can put stuff in there, but only certain things get hot in the microwave.
I
It's
love
like
that theory.
because the waves go through the water molecules, right, in whatever your food is, but it doesn't heat up everything the same. And so,
No.
what if that's what the radium fireplace was doing? What if it was just kind of like heating up the things with water in them, like us?
That
You know what I
makes
mean?
total-
So it almost makes sense that is that almost like the idea of like what they talk about fictionally, cold fusion. So like you could be in a place like a big house, and you would be warm, but the house is actually not warm. What do you think about that idea?
So I'll take it one step further. Back in the day, they used to use, what does it say in the Bible? Don't mix your cloth types.
Linen. It tells you not to mix linen and
Animal
wool
plants.
together.
Yeah.
Okay, so wool, linen, and silk. Those three types of substances. I make water filters with my biochar. So we find like when we use like an alpaca wool or a linen, I've used all three because of the grounding properties as essentially a sleeve to hold the biochar. And then you run water through that and the biochar pulls out all the toxins from the water, right? Well, the actual linen itself or the wool or the silk, what that does is that makes you ground. So your theory is right on, JT, because if they had radium, right? And say back in the day, it was very well known that they had uranium glass. Men, we're told in our day, men would have flasks, you know, and they would say that was for alcohol. Let's say it wasn't that. Let's say that they actually had a flask of some sort of other, like a radium flask or uranium flask in their coat pocket. Why were they always wearing these ornate layers, right? When you wear ornate layers of those different cloths, you become an orgone accumulator. So just as you said, the signal that would occur from the voltage from the top of the roof and the ground that was in the cistern, you'd have enough voltage. Trust me, you would have enough voltage where if that is actually hitting those radium balls in front of the quote unquote fireplace, and then you yourself are wearing the clothes that are multiple layer, you would warm up because you are ground.
Isn't that where they said that originally, like soles of shoes and everything were?
They were all
like people
leather.
say, we know that. Yeah, well, I mean for that, but they would use the rubber soles for when they were stopping. I wonder if couldn't they just use that for like their temperature control? Like you would just connect yourself, then not connect yourself, and then basically
Absolutely.
you would either heat up or you wouldn't. So I wonder if I always theorize like that. Now I'm just thinking even harder on it. Like, would the rubberized soles or anything would they have used a stop for the connection beneficially? You know, instead of because
my lineman friends, that's what they do. They actually have all these different types of they have to wear the completely rubber insulated work boots, and then they have this special gloves where at no point can they cross and create ground, because if they create ground,
bam.
and then they're touching one of these high tension cables, they're gone.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're instantly petrified, which is a whole nother subject. But that whole thing with that is, I really think the tech was elegant. And also you have to ask yourself, not only were they warming themselves that way, in almost all these old world buildings, they had to retrofit the bathrooms. The bathrooms weren't part of the house.
Right.
So if they had the technology to actually have the cistern, have water going up and down throughout the house, but yet there was no sewage in the house, and they had the ability to heat without wood, they had the ability to heat with, let's just say this theory is correct, with radium, and then using the right, the tweeds and the real wools and the real linens, and they were always layered. That layering does something.
The pajamas would be linen, right? That's just probably what they'd be wearing, right?
Dude, I think you're so dead on. They would warm directly, because I'll tell you, as somebody that builds thermal mass heaters, the worst thing you can try and do is warm air. That's like the dumbest thing in the world.
Right. It's very inefficient. And that's what I was saying. Actually, that was part of my theory in here, that I said the thing that really makes zero sense about like what we're told about medieval times is you'd have the peasant class building their house around some kind of a stove or a fireplace, right? Like the whole house is built around this thing. And then you have these castles that are huge and there's no fireplaces in them. And even if there were, it would be very inefficient to try to heat one of those things. So what if, like the idea of the radium makes sense, is like the people were warm, the castle was not warm.
Absolutely.
That's wild. That's really, because that's the opposite of what I use in Branson. We had like the house was like all of them are so water damaged and just beat up. And before we moved here, this house is way better on its insulation. But I found out just from my products, like if the humidity in the shop would get above 50%, the shilajit and different products will start to gum up. It'll immediately pull the water out of the air. Shilajit is like the most like crazy element, like kind of elemental mixture ever. It looks like water when you move in its dry form, and it'll grab water right out of the air and stuff. So I started running a dehumidifier for the product's sake. And then lo and behold, I could never get my AC because of the inefficiency below 74. It would always run at 74, run nonstop all day long. I had like insane power bills just in this little 1,200 square foot house. But I started running a dehumidifier in the house just to take the air out, and immediately we were able to get the air down to 70 every day. It would run and it would shut off, like it would. So automatically my power bills went literally hundreds of dollars down. It was amazing. Now we run them here for the shop, but we run them. I just do it in my house now, and honestly, like every person I've told that to, they cut the air, the water out of the air, and then it's already harder to cool or heat air, right? Like in there. So on top of it, now you're adding moisture to it. It's even triple harder for like the AC and the heater. Plus you're getting all this extra moisture up into your HVAC and stuff that taking it out seems to prolong. All the guys said like, yes, it's 100% better. We like to, thermal insulate them and stuff like that for humidity. But anybody out there is hearing that too, because that's like kind of the opposite, like what we're talking about. But if you have like a small dehumidifier in your house, you think that it uses energy and it's going to cost you money. But if you just ran it at like 50% in your house and keep it there, it's easier for you to breathe like at night and different things like that. It'll keep it at like a good level. And then like your AC and heat, it's like amazing how much efficiency it adds. But you guys are like making me think of like all these different things with this tech of what it could be. And these are like subjects that we've all been into for a long time. So to be able to revisit them and kind of re-nerd out on them, that's pretty cool.
Well, the old world buildings, while aesthetically gorgeous, they are not practical for us today. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that we could build some of them, but we wouldn't. Because like the idea of like when you go into one of these, like just think about like these state courthouses and things like that. And as soon as you go up, the ceilings go all the way up to the top of the dome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I think sometimes
But vaulted ceilings are the best for heating and cooling, JT. What are you talking about?
Yeah, like not with central air. So if you think about it, like I think that's why some of the buildings, I mean, I think lots of the buildings were destroyed to remove some kind of evidence. But I also think that some people would probably like when you see, because obviously they did refurbish and reuse those old kind of castles, and they turned them into jails or orphanages, insane asylums. But then a lot of these places, they sat forever, and then they never used them again. And then eventually they did demo them, probably because it would be crazy expensive to try to retrofit them with modern HVAC systems. And the buildings are not built for that. They're not, you'd have
There's
to add
nowhere
all
to
this,
put
this
it,
duct
like-
work. Yeah, you'd have to add all this extra stuff. And
plus,
drop ceilings,
I
all
can
those
speak-
drop ceiling things.
I can speak directly to this because I've built with geopolymers. You have to treat a geopolymer very much like a living wall, like a cob wall. So when you put HVAC into it, you dry it out. It doesn't like that. It likes the atmosphere of the outside and the inside to be the same. So that points to some massive difference in our temperatures, like what things used to be.
Isn't that porous versus non-porous? Like all the modern construction is about being non-porous, right? Am I
all the
wrong?
modern construction is like you hermetically seal people inside.
Yeah.
Like when you close a door, it's like thump, and like everything is sealed, and that's why people get so sick from being inside so much.
Or tornadoes, you got to open the windows up, like, and that makes a lot of sense too. Like, because here they always say like crack the windows during a tornado.
yeah, because otherwise your windows are going to bust out, right?
Yeah, they'll blow out from the pressure. That kind of seemed like really counterintuitive to me, but now it makes sense with the way they build.
Yeah, a lot of the building techniques now are literally like they're building like a tomb like a literal tomb, like the earthen building, the Roman cement, when you're actually building with the geopolymer is like a crystal, so it lives. It's like, when I say lives, I'm not saying it has a soul or anything. I'm not an animist, but like what I'm saying it lives is that the crystal in and of itself, it does not like being isolated in an environment where the air isn't moving. And so, especially when you condition air around these things, it's like in all the trades books when it comes to lime, concrete, Roman cement, fascia, corrections and things like that. They will all say it's like you can't really fix it inside of a conditioned airspace.
That's like Feng Shui. I know that's like voodoo and taboo to bring up and stuff. It's not stuff it's like those things we know they pull from certain elements that are probably like real.
Explain to people what Feng Shui is, and isn't that the kind of idea of like what they were doing back in the 70s? Well, it's not a 70s thing, but
I do it now. It's
something that kind of was it after like the Beatles came back from India. They discovered they brought some Eastern practices back about how saying like the energy of a room is based on like how you rearrange your furniture. Is that what it is, or am I wrong?
They over mysticized it. I can be very practical about it. Feng Shui is hydrodynamics. That's all it is. So we live in a fluid. Like right now, the air that we breathe, the atmosphere that we're breathing in is a fluid. Gases and fluids work the same way. All Feng Shui is, when they talk about elemental energies, they're not talking about gods or sprites or anything like that. They're literally talking about fire has this quality, air has this quality, water has this quality, earth has this quality. That quality, the quality of those things in the materials that you build your house with the positioning of your house relative to the sun, because the sun is the big heat source, it's the big heat lamp in the sky, has everything to do with how you will qualitatively experience the inside of your house. So all of us have been inside of a messy room. When you're inside a room that's not clean and there's distortion and chaos, you feel it. At least I can feel it.
Oh, so that's obviously totally understandable.
That's all Feng Shui is saying is like, you can have the most beautiful furniture in the world, but if it's arranged in a room where the shape is such and such and the materials of the room are such and such, and you don't have breaks for the vertices and the corners and things like that, it's not going to feel good. Biologically, your body will not feel good. Yeah. So I think Feng Shui was overly mystified. Like they've overly mystified a lot of science that was once known.
A lot of it's because people, I think they over focus on the financial side. If you have a shotgun house where like your door, you can see your front door and your back door, and you like straight through like that, they say the money goes in and goes straight out, like different things like that. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like every person in Vegas that used to present Feng Shui or Feng Shui to me they go right in the jugular with this idea of like, you got to set it up like this or you're not going to have prosperity in your life. And I'm always like, well, I believe in a higher power that's going to tell me based on my cat getting in here. The scripture is based on righteousness or a lack of that is going to be, what he's going to look at for that. That's what every example in scripture shows for us is those types of things. But when you were speaking to the construction side of things, whether you're talking about porous materials or the arrangement of certain layering or, things being able to breathe or not breathe or, pumping straight electricity through stuff. Think about AC current. It's an alternate current and it's pumping through every one of our walls as like an interference with like the natural ether, like atmospheric presence, like all these things that are there. If you think about it, if we're made in his image and in the beginning of it, you wonder why they could see heaven. I mean, he obviously can shut that off from people, but like if they literally were one vibrating essence from his light all the way down to earth with no impedance, right? Like 100% of everything from the sky of heaven all the way down through the water, because it is, you're right. You can do it. You can move your hands right now and you can feel how it's got like a liquid. And when it's really humid outside, it feels like you're almost in a light, you know that, JT, being where you are. Like,
yeah, no, it's only... I know Topher knows being from Florida.
Yeah,
yeah,
and living in Costa Rica, where I lived in Costa Rica.
Yeah, Costa Rica.
I lived in Costa Rica in Guanacaste for a little. We only went
you
down
were in the dry part. Come down to the Osa Peninsula where I was, dude.
It was wild for me because I was building atmospheric generators where we were going to do, about like a few hundred feet of piping under about 12 feet down in the soil and then bring it up and then do atmospheric water generators and stuff there. And I was so blown away with Costa Rica. Arkansas is the only place I've lived that has a comparable humidity to that.
Yeah,
but
agree.
it's like with Costa Rica, it's like you're in Guanacaste, you're surrounded by all the tica trees and everything. They've destroyed all the moisture there and everything, but you're inundated with water all around you, all in the oceans. And then they're saying that it's in droughts in Playa Blanca and like different places because all the tourists would come and suck it out if they didn't have city water and stuff. But anyways, like it's amazing. The humidity here and everything that does the only place I've ever lived.
I keep hearing you say Branson. Are you in Missouri also?
I was in Branson for 3 years. That's what we came down. We were part of Parable the Vineyard. We got like involved in their ministry. After 3 years, we bounced out of there, and to expand the manufacturing business, I would have got like 1 to 2 acres for what I got 7 out here in Arkansas. So I'm in Conway, just outside of Little Rocks.
Bro, I didn't realize you were there. For some reason, I thought you were in Florida. I have to roll down because I'm right in West Plains, so I'm in southern.
Yeah, I heard you say that. I was going to touch base with you after this and stuff.
Yeah, I'm in southern Missouri, so I can roll on down to you, no problem. Conway's not far at all.
You know, the thing is, I want to go back to the idea of like the way a room might make you feel. You know, because I think that ties into a lot of the, just in general, like the old world architecture. And like I said, I saw this video a long time ago. I want to say it was like on BBC. It's like it's probably a video from like the early 80s or late 70s. And it was talking about how, you know, this brutalism architecture was being introduced into these places. And it was like a posing of like the human spirit. And like we know, like we all feel it. And I remember that was the first time I'd ever watched anything like that. This is before I ever made any content or anything. And I was like, dang, I never really guess I never really put much thought into like a way a place makes you feel. And so you go into an old world cathedral and you're like your spirit is just like, it's like you got like the angel noises going off. And then versus when you got to go to court or something like that, and it's in this brutalist building and you already feel like you're being beat before you even walk through the door. So how is that really different from like, the way if you're in a room and it's rearranged wrong, you're like, there's something you can't settle down. Or even if it's something as simple as like a color of paint that you hate.
Yeah, like
you know what I mean? Like
or whatever.
There's a reason why like we get certain feelings from colors or shapes. So I mean it might be presented as like a new agey thing, but there's obviously something to it, and I think we all feel it without even. It's even been like the way you dress.
Definitely,
it's like that we don't feel like ourselves if somebody tried to put you in something different. What's wrong? They're all just clothes, but like we don't feel like that. We wouldn't feel like ourselves. So like it would be weird if you didn't want it arranged in a certain way, and you might not know why you're doing it, but you know, it's almost like a Rain Man type thing. Where you're like, oh no, this is wrong. This is wrong. We have to change everything out and put it into an order, or otherwise you're going to freak out.
That cathedral you showed there is kind of an example of like how our perception of things can also be wrong of what it really is. Because some of those cathedrals are dark, like Gothic, you know what I mean? But people proclaim the bright energy that they get when they go into it, right? So it also goes to like your point, like some things can be set up wrong and throw you off. The color, the different setup, or anything that's in there, the shapes of stuff are like all like those weird abstract art. I think when anybody sees that the first time and they're used to like all their normal stuff, they're like, whoa, this is weird. When you see like they take the downtowns of any city and they put all this weird abstract art in it, and like they put all these shipping containers now and stuff, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah, all that weird modern art just looks like trash just set up, and you're like...
But then the Gothic stuff you showed in that cathedral would seem like some of them are so dark that you would think you would be like dismal and down, but people go in and all they talk about is how much better they feel. And so I guess it's like crazy on certain things can appear a certain way and put off a completely different vibe, literally. Or you could have something that you don't pay attention to. You know, like I had lots of people hit me with Feng Shui in Vegas. It's a big thing out there because everybody's focused on kind of the material world and that kind of esoteric side to it. Like that's the connection they want to go with. It's like, how can I create more prosperity? I have to talk about these things. And it's like, well, you could talk to Abba too. You know, you could you could read your Bible and you could have other conversations like that. But yeah, it is pretty amazing to see like certain ones of it, how they, even my house, it's so true. When you go in, like when the cleaning lady comes in and, we only have it once in a while, but she comes in and like just resets it. You just get a difference in because you know, it's one way too. Like we don't have any chemical cleaners and stuff like that. So I had been like my mom growing up, it was like Saturday was the bleach smell and it was going to be like, you know,
Pine Sol.
Yeah, pine sol and bleach smells and things like that. And it has a very off-putting, even though the house looks beautiful and it's like you could eat off any surface, but it's filled with those smells and everything, and it doesn't get it. Now, like when we have the cleaning lady come through and stuff, those difference, you know, you get these bright, like, you know, essential oil cements and stuff, and everything's clean and squeaky clean, and it gives you like this awesome kind of feel and stuff. It kind of lightens your day.
So I got into all the dynamics of curves and things like that, curvilinear structures, because I noticed in the best spas that I would work in, the best bodywork sessions, the best people would feel were in these rooms where there were no vertices. And then my ex and I, we were traveling around Florida trying to look for different types of home building things. And I walked into this dome and I was like, I could just feel how perfect it was. Like I could just feel how my body just settled into the dome. And then when I went to Cal Earth University to learn how to build domes, they didn't call the bedrooms, they called them bed wombs, like you were in the womb.
Wow.
And that's the way you feel, because when you're in there, there's no like vertice. There's nothing in your field. And our body's field is isotropic, meaning it's spherical. So imagine your body field. It's like trying to fit a sphere into a square box.
Square peg in a round hole.
Exactly. It doesn't like that. It doesn't. I shouldn't say it doesn't like that, because most people are unconscious to it. Let's just say it's not optimal. So I literally, like, my whole, you know, business plan with building is actually for those people that are actually sensitive to the round versus the planar surfaces. And you can go book yourself in a 5-star hotel and go to their spa, and you'll go into the hotel everything will be cubicle. You go into that spa, you go get your body work, you won't find everything will be curved and softened and everything like that. So your body will relax. And more often than not, they have healthier materials in those spaces. Like when you go into like a real sauna, they're using like real red cedar that hasn't been treated by any chemical, or they're using like an old oak or something. They're using materials that when they breathe, when they transpire, none of that is having a terrible effect on you. Because the problem with modern construction, ever since they implemented the Bauhaus method, it's all just utilitarian. It's just like, oh, you're going to sleep here, we're throwing you in a box. You're like a sardine can. And it's that brutalist mentality to get you to feel uninspired. You take away the spires, so people are uninspired.
Oh, that's interesting. You know, so I had a couple of videos that I saved. I thought this would be fun to play. A couple from like inside some of these cathedrals. And we're talking about like how one of these places might make you feel. This one is crazy. I forgot exactly which cathedral this is. I'll have to look it up.
Whoever's friends of the guy who made that are probably like, really? That, like the one who's competing with them and stuff is probably like looking around like, oh, this is what I got to compete with. Like, there's so many different lines in that place and curves. Like, I didn't even know where to look. That's
I know.
amazing.
I was saying, like, that was one of those ones I was like, is this AI? It's like it's there's so much going on. I couldn't even believe it. Here, I got one more because I thought this one was cool too. But yeah, it's so busy, but it's so like awesome at the same time. It's not like it's excessive, but it's not too much. If that makes any sense at all.
It's like it's inviting. I don't know if that's the only word that comes to mind for me. It's like even though there's so much, it's not off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
Beautiful.
speechless on that one too.
Yeah, it's just like it's just hard to imagine anyone doing that.
No one that's not inspired. I'm telling you, like, to me, that is the biggest evidence of the little season, like, or of the millennial reign, I should say. That, like, people were inspired. Those are not wage slaves that are creating that. When I went to Roslyn Chapel, I paid $40 for a BS, walk through a Roslyn Chapel. And that's this really small, they call it, it's not even a cathedral, but it's like a very old church in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And they were giving us this BS story about this one pillar. And they were talking about the master mason and his apprentice, and how his apprentice ended up taking over and doing the pillar and carving it. 40 years for one column.
Oh yeah, actually I think I remember that. We might have talked about that on this podcast.
And I was like, 40 years for one column, and it's not even load bearing, because I'm looking at the structure and there's all these flying buttresses that are actually holding that aspect of the cathedral up, and I'm like, this is a total lie. You are lying. Like that is not true. The human, like a normal human, and that they had this elaborate story of how he had to travel from England up to Scotland and how arduous the journey was. And I'm like, no, incorrect.
And that's right before you got thrown out. No, just kidding. It's like, I had enough of this.
Well, it was 2014, right? And then 2015 is when like all the Tartarian and Antiquitech and Flat Earth stuff started to hit the scene. Yeah. So I just had it in the back of my mind as a builder, like when I heard 40 years, 2 men committed to one column, that's just artistic nothingness.
Your whole life's work is one pillar.
You think that could have been a partial truth where they were restoring part of this place that they found?
Absolutely, there's a partial truth. They always have to anchor with like a little bit of truth. It's sort of like the Federal Reserve, like 0.01% truth. But my internal being was like, no, this is a lot. Like, this is an utter lie. Like, because think about it. We're told resources were more limited. We're told that life was harder. What you could just see in human reproduction this today, like when resources are limited and life is harder, people reproduce less.
Yeah.
There's less art. Art only happens when there's just this overabundance and there's this like strength and spirit and inspiration and stuff like that. Either that or there's like utter dejection. But you don't get this like, oh, I'm the constant worker guy. Like, JT, you've run crews. Could you imagine telling a crew that you used to run, okay, guys, we got this 40-year job. It's just this ornamental facade. It's this ornamental facade. Could you imagine keeping your dudes motivated?
I guess if I knew I had 40 years to do it, I probably would not be really hitting too many licks each day. Be like, well, that's enough for today.
Your parents
guys
didn't get
ready to go
see
get a
it.
pint?
Your whole ancestry dies and doesn't get to see it. It's like everybody. Sorry, mom, didn't get to show you. You know, it's still going on.
I think to me that's a big one right there. That's what you just said, is that some of these cathedrals timelines were like 500 years. I think a couple of them, they were built over quote unquote 500 years. And I'm just thinking, like, I just don't see how that's practical whatsoever.
No.
How are you justifying that to anybody? It's like, so when is it going to be done? 500 years?
You can't get even project management today to go from, like, say one construction company goes defunct and you're having another construction company coming to take over.
Well, and we're also talking about empires rising and falling in shorter amounts of time
changes
than
in
that.
currencies.
So it's really kind of stupid to do that. I mean, if you just think about just what we're told about the timeline of the United States, so we're just approaching 250 years now. You're telling me that somebody's going to start something in 1776 and it's halfway done right now? Like that's dumb. Because I mean, based on the trajectory of the United States, like, will it ever be done? And so you're also talking about a situation where, with wars and obviously resets, even though they don't like to tell us about them, the risk of knowledge being lost of actually how to still do the things that keep this project on track do not track. So that's the thing. It's like, so you're talking about, like, I'm working on this thing that my great grandchildren won't even be able to enjoy.
No.
Like, what is what is the actual point of doing that?
If that's the prestige of a building that you build for 500 years, like, what does the things that you build fast look like? Because it's like, if that's a 500-year project, what's the 50-year project look like? That it should be like literally like New Jerusalem, like 1,400 miles squared, some kind of something. Because it's like, those things take that long for you to finish. You would think that, like, a king or a leader who's building something that magnificent, there's never been anything that has waited long. They take all their people and they go, now Tower of Babel, like, now, like, boom, that's the way
this is going to be for me. Or this is going to be a monument for me. And so if you think about, like, that's kind of like what we're told about all these ancient kings who, they are not, like, because you can imagine what the next king's going to do and saying, nah, we're not doing that. Like, so these guys got to make sure that it actually gets done, because they'd be like, because anybody else could slap their name on it. You know, because if their line ends, the other guy's going to say, that guy sucks. We ain't doing anything for him. Let's make this about me. So, yeah, it makes no sense. People are not like that. People are not built like that.
We know in today's time it takes 3 generations to completely erase something. So what they're saying is in what would that be? 25 generations they were able to keep the knowledge of something going, if not evolving. And
we
the
don't
thing
even know
is,
how to go back to the moon, Topher.
Right? And, like, dude, the thing is, what I look for as a guy, as somebody that does a lot of concrete work, is I look for cold seams. So when they tell me, okay, this thing took 500 years, guys, 500 years, I'm looking at it and I'm just looking for cold seams. Where are the cold seams? Where are the cold seams in the pour? Where are the cold seams where are the cold seams because and even I know Roman cement, the way Roman cement cures, you have to heat it. Like, it does best if you heat it. If you don't heat it, that's why a lot of Roman cement fails, is because it's not heated. So all these guys they'll get the chemicals right. They don't get the temperature of it correct, right? So you have the geopolymer guys out there and stuff like that. The geopolymers will show you even worse cold seam. Like, so you look at these buildings and we can't repair them now. Like, you cannot take our concrete, our type of cement, our Portland type of cement, and do the patches on these Roman cement buildings. You see these crazy, like, discoloration of different patch jobs and everything like that. And then you see, like, you can see where the patch jobs are, and people try to pass that off as if it took a really long time to construct something. I'm like, you don't see seams in these buildings.
That's
So are
good.
you saying that does it like? Because I was wondering when they say castle, you know what I mean? It's like casted, like,
Right.
and a lot of that. I know that
Yes.
building a mold of that magnitude would be incredible for my brain, you know, to even conceive thinking about it. But it also to me makes a lot better sense with like these shapes of resonance, you know what I mean, or these different things. If somebody did build a mold and then go and then just like stick it in there and then fill it or whatever they did, who knows? Now I'm looking into like Tartarian earth mover machines and stuff that there's like people, some of these stuff I gotta like get into some more verification on. But it seems like they had a lot of things that would have been able to like take material and move material and do things like that. You know, because if you're saying that, I'm just going through this. I love talking to like new people about certain things because that's kind of like strata to me with Gunner's work. It's irrefutable in the way that you can present it, where you would go up and be like, I'm here to tell you, I can take concrete and I can do this 1,000 times and it will not appear this way. And if I did it over even 1 year, stopping and starting, stopping and starting, stopping and starting, there would be the actual, like you're saying, cold seams to verify like where that stop and start point is, right? And you wouldn't even if I'm correct in saying the end result would be a lot more chance of, you know, being compromised because you're doing a start and stop, start and stop.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I think actually that's one of the better points I've heard about that because from what I can tell you in construction, well, I mean, it just makes general sense that like you don't start a wall that you can't finish because if
Right.
you start and stop this wall at a certain point, it's going to look different. You're going to see the break in the new timeline. So what you'd expect to see if you went into these cathedrals, that if they were built over hundreds of years, you would see the newer parts and you'd see the older parts and you would see them next to each other. And so
Yeah.
even like if you work with plaster, you know, and if these buildings are, even if they're made of stone, unless they quarried all the stone for all this building at the same time and they got it all like laid out on the site and then started putting it up. But if we're told that it took over hundreds of years, well, wouldn't it likely be that the stone starts to look different over
Yes.
like the different times where they were quarrying stone? Because even if you think about like plaster, I know that when we would try to like if we were trying to like do like interior, mostly exterior plaster, you'd want to get it to be a certain color. You'd want to mix it all at the same time, like so you'd
Yes.
have the buckets of it because the batches are always slightly different.
Right.
So like there's no uniformity unless
Yep.
you're getting it done like at the same time. So yeah, absolutely you would see differences in the phases of these things.
Yes.
And we're talking about phases for like us, we're talking about over years. We're not talking about hundreds of years.
Right.
Because now you're talking about like that, man, this one guy was really good, but too bad he just died. His son is, he's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, like, are these guys all the same level of craftsmen? And again, like we've seen in our own lifetimes, like literally dying arts of different construction methods, where there's very few people who can actually do this kind of work now.
Yeah, like next to none. Like you can look in the trade books around lime-based cement and Roman cement patching and all the rest of it, and it's a horror show.
No, there's nobody. There's
no one
hardly
left.
anybody. Like even like I said, in my generation, I grew up crewing with plasterers, and
Yes.
those guys all became drunks and died, and then when we went to go try to replace things, and a lot of times, you know, because when we were trying to restore old buildings, that we would have to make molds of these plaster, you know, cornices and different art pieces in these buildings. And trying to find anyone who could do it around here is almost impossible. Now, I know that obviously you go up north and there's lots of people doing that kind of stuff, but it's not lots of people. There's people who can do it, but I mean, it's really like the amount of companies that can do it are very small. So yeah, again, you're taking a big risk if you don't get something done while you have the people who can do it.
Right.
JT, you got to get like, maybe it could be like a thing now that we're like requesting that, but like if anybody out there has like construction proficiencies like this, like glass or things that you could actually speak on something that's irrefutable like this. Because I mean, those are kind of things like it would be kind of cool if we had like an engineer's handbook of like Tartaria and brought all the experts in and did like a case study, a legit, because that's what like we did, and have like, you know, somebody like yourself who's coming in, Topher, to talk about like, hey, this is irrefutable. You cannot do things and have this won't work. Or somebody with the glass and saying, no, this is impossible the way that their narrative is saying it because of this. And then, because I mean, like the Strata that we know that was so influential in all of our little season walks with Gunner's work, you know, things like that. I always say, like, when I go into my line of work with health and everything, I focus on the realm of impossibilities. That's what I go for, the impossibilities first. It helps you to rule out many, many things when you're coming into a hypothesis versus scientific rationale and taking a theory to a hypothesis even, you know, but being able to rule things out in the level of impossibility, then you can, because it's like, is it even worth talking about now? Because if you're saying that the concrete can't do this, then that's boom, dink, impossible. You can move on to either a different part of that conversation or altogether a different aspect of it, you know, with proving your point and stuff like that. But I mean, if there's anybody else out there, I would love to hear. This is like one of my favorite nerd out conversations in the old world kind of tech and stuff.
You know, it would
Definitely.
be great. This is, I think this is the way to kind of, if we could get some boots on the ground. Do we got any European listeners here? I want somebody to go to that, the Sagrada Familia, go to that one and take close pictures at the phases, because obviously we do know that that building was built over a long period of time or restored. So if you could show where the different probably construction materials and the different phases where you can see the breaks in the building, really try to document that, and then maybe go to like a Lincoln Cathedral and go and try to find them there in that building. Do you know what I'm saying? Because what I'm saying is I think you'll be able to find them in the building that we know that was built over, you know, over 100 years. Just say over 100 years.
Wow, yeah.
And then so you would be
idea.
able to document like, hey, check this out. This stone is not even the same stone that they use anymore. And then you go to Lincoln Cathedral and you might not find any differences throughout the whole building.
Yeah,
Wow.
you would saw, like when I was there in 2014 and 2015, I went to it first 2014, and I went back in 2015 to build. And when I was south of there, but I went to go visit both those times in Barcelona, and they had one phase that they had finished from the 2014, and the cement looked totally different to the point where they were painting the building. Now a lot of these cathedrals don't have paint.
Oh man. Well, you would think about too, like paint, like on like, I mean, certain paint that they demonize, lead paint, obviously, you know, but certain paint could have like inhibiting qualities too. So make, you know, with what they're doing there. Goodness, that thing. Which one is this? Is the one that you were just?
That's the one in
Sagrada
Barcelona.
Familia. That's the one I was talking about. But this is the one that supposedly just got finished.
A lot of that's painted. Like I was on that west side where I wish I could point at it, but like that, a lot of that's painted.
The face looks melted on there. It looked like mouths almost. Go back to that last picture, can you? See, the face looks like
over here.
Scary. The big one in the middle, right there, like over there. Go down from where you just were, right, dead center. It looks like a big mouth open. Oh no, it's the same picture. Sorry, sorry. It was the picture you had, but it had like on the building. It looked like a big mouth. See, almost like Disney, like right there, and it's like a dark center to it in the middle spire. That looks melted. Yeah, that thing looks like a weapon almost. And the way it is, looks like if it just powered up with CERN, it would just.
I'm with Topher though. I don't. This one is not very aesthetically pleasing to me.
It wasn't all like when I walked around it twice. My host was like all, you know, into it, and I was like, whatever.
It looks melted, doesn't it? Like that.
It looks
those bottom. Kind of certain parts of it. I guess it's not. It's just the way it's designed.
You know, I think what it seems like to me, it really lacks like the symmetry.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like these other buildings we're looking at, they're super symmetrical and they look just awesome.
Yes.
But to me, this is like, yeah, it's kind of the Feng Shui thing. It's like, I don't know. There's something about it. I just don't really like it. I'm not saying it's not impressive, but like it does not compare to these other ones.
You think it's a different era of these kind of buildings?
Well, what we're told is, well, if you see old pictures of it, like there's pictures from like the 1800s where it looks like it was found and there's part of it there. No, obviously
Yeah,
they obviously built some of this recently. So like, I'm not saying like that this was completely
They
found.
built
like
the wings on
Can
it.
you
That center part was already there.
Can you get that last picture? Why does it look so rough in that part on the right? See that whole section there? It almost looks like it was been melted or shaved. Is that just the way it's?
Yeah,
That
I want to
was
stop
the old
sharing.
part.
You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna try to find the old pictures like from the 1800s real quick.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. That part that you think is melded, Josh, that was the old part. They just built wings onto the side with spires. It's not impressive.
I think that's why it like doesn't match because whatever they've added there has just completely thrown
It was a
off
Dali thing. Like Dali got all like, he was inspired to modify this building and like make it into like what
like Dalai Lama. Is that what you're talking about?
No, like Dali, the famous
Yeah.
artist.
Okay,
yeah.
I have heard that name.
Yeah, so I'm not like in the 7 different cathedrals I saw, that was like the least impressive. And they
Yeah,
make
definitely.
they make it like a tourist attraction, like it's like you're going to Disney World or whatever. So you're in these long lines, and they're hitting you with all the marketing. When you go to these other sites, it's not like that at all. You're like really just in the cut, like you're in the field of the building.
It's really the stuff they've added. Even the one front piece he was showing there, it looked like it had a bunch of those like half arches coming out, like just sticking out, and all of them have like a slight sharpness to them, and it throws off the whole thing. The whole contrast of it like starts standing out instead of it being like a fluid kind of look to it. Even though they look like they're somewhat smooth and the angles are contoured in some way, they don't seem like they actually match the rest of it. Even the melted side of it seems like it has like that old Transylvania type kind of feel to it,
Yeah, you're right about the Transylvania thing. That's a cool likeness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard to find the picture I was looking for, but dude, this is kind of funny. This picture here. He's got some bulls hanging out, and then this thing's out in the background.
Got the vanilla sky working.
Oh yeah, totally vanilla out.
Nothing to see here, guys.
Yeah, there's a bunch of there's some old pictures, but yeah, they all look goofy. Like I don't know. I don't know.
Like it was.
You can.
It looks like
I think they might have like there might have been something there, and they might have been doing their best to replicate what was already there.
Yeah,
but whatever it looked like probably before it got blowed up or something, it's probably way better.
I wonder if Satan like had like some kind of if there's some kind of sentimental value to him for it, and why they would actually build it back instead of trying to take it down.
I think one reason why they might build it back is because to show that they can.
Yeah,
true.
Right. That's true.
True. But look at the budget. Look at the budget in the timeline.
No, yeah, of course. But I guess that's the point is like that. See, I don't go as far as a lot of people to say that we could not build certain of these buildings. I believe that we could. I don't think it's practical at all to build any of this stuff anymore. So the fact that we don't see cathedrals going up like the ones we're talking about and the ones we're in awe of now, that's a problem for their narrative. So I think part of it is like, well, we got to build at least one of them.
Right.
People need to see that we can do it.
We should put our own team together in the future if Abba should bless us like that, and we'll build a small scale one and be like, all right, we need the best of the best to come together and show that we can build one of these things and like what it would take on a small scale. And build like one that would be like as big as like an acre or something, and mini scale it and stuff like that.
Flood it ourselves.
That'd be awesome. This is a test case for everything.
Exactly. It's got to be able to survive a mud flood.
There we go.
Build a couple floors, then we're gonna
machines.
Put them under the ground. In my town, like really close to where I live, they're selling an old Gothic cathedral that was supposedly built like in 1912 or something.
Nice.
They're selling it, and I said this would be the best.
Pick it up.
JT's Mixtape Studios.
Oh, it's by you?
Oh, it's close to me. This is like criminal though. I forgot it went for sale in 2022. For $256,000, and I was like, okay, it's listed now probably after them not fixing up at all for $1.2 million.
Oh, just $1 million markup, bro.
Yeah,
you gotta eat it. You gotta eat it on the chin.
I'm telling
That'd
you,
be a
man.
cool
Can you imagine if
mixtape,
we had?
man.
Yeah, if we have the JT's filed JC Inc. at the the Gothic Cathedral.
That's
That'd
right.
be,
Be like, look at my 300-foot dome that we restored here.
What?
I'm gonna have
That's
to get
awesome.
Topher in here to help me restore it, probably, because I think that would be
That'd
the
be
one
awesome.
part that would be really unnerving about buying a building that's that old is like, how much work is it going to take to fix this thing? It could be quite a money pit.
It depends, man. It depends. Like you can look at some of these buildings and like, depending on who built, I mean, just like anything, it's just like who built it, what was the maintenance schedule, was it loved, was it, defamed, like all the different things.
Really
Fine.
cool to like play around with something like that and have like a crew come in and just start reshaping walls and everything.
Oh yeah,
I know
here,
up
here
in
you go.
St. Louis,
Here-
they got a lot of nice places like that. in
Should I
bad
start a
areas.
GoFundMe to help me buy this thing? You guys are definitely all welcome there. There.
That's
that's
considered
legit.
Gothic?
I don't know if it's considered Gothic, but I mean it's kind of Gothic. It's got the big tower and stuff. You can see it's got the mud flooded windows at the bottom over here.
That almost looks like one of those insane asylums.
Yeah, it does.
Might
You
be.
could get
It
it-
might be
you-
after you buy it. Pay 1.2
Yeah, yeah.
Some
for it.
submerged windows there though. Some of the
Yeah, I
some
think
of
those
windows,
are
yeah.
like right at the street level.
They're on the right there by the big tower at the bottom of it. Looks like it has some that are like half cut over there. See on the right by the big tower.
Yeah. Oh,
There's
there's most certainly windows right at the ground floor, and I'm sure there's stuff under. And I guarantee you, there's tunnels connecting to other
Nice.
churches there.
You got to find the cistern and see if what temperature the water is.
Yeah, there you go. I said I want
Yeah.
you're gonna have to throw the bell in.
That's right. The real one, the old
Yeah, you
one,
gotta
the one
throw
that
the
was
bell in.
tuned.
JC would be out there, bing boom, bing boom,
The one that was tuned correctly.
Be like, JC, get out of the bell, bro.
Yeah, but anyways, that's yeah, it's a little bit out of my price range, unfortunately. But yeah, I did actually. I was talking to a friend who's does a little stuff in commercial real estate, and I said, let's just go get him to just show it to us. Let's go down. I want to see the bottom floor. I want to go see all the stuff that's under it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Gotta get
Where's
surveyed.
those big vault room doors at the basement that go down that are halfway under mud and stuff? Let's open that.
You go
back
down
up.
there. There's catacombs of like skulls and
Oh
fingers.
yeah, you want to see all the bones. I want to see all the bones rearranged in geometric
I don't
patterns.
believe this is a real one. Let me see the catacombs. Then we'll start talking money, guys.
And then you're gonna have the alphabet agencies in there. Oh, we found this treasure chest over here. Sorry, sir, but that's now ours. And
Yeah.
We're appropriating this. The
some
Smithsonian.
Sumerian artifacts are in here.
Yeah,
and,
the Templars or the Templars tunneled under it. But anyways,
That's
guys,
awesome.
this has been a lot of fun. Hey, so Topher, you have something that you're promoting here. You got a new product that you're promoting for. That kind of fits with the first topic we were talking about. With the
Well, it fits with all of it. To tell you the truth, because I'm a material scientist, so like when I talk about this type of stuff, I'm coming at it from an educated perspective. I sell biochar, which is pyrolyzed carbon. So it's very diamagnetic. So when we're talking about these materials like geopolymers, and we're talking about these paramagnetic rock, towers, along with diamagnetics and all the rest of it, that's sort of my wheelhouse. But my product is for soil. It's not only for soil, but right now what we're launching is for soil. And it's, whenever you see dark soil, it's usually because of the carbon that's in the soil. My product of carbon, my biochar, is essentially the most diamagnetically rich carbon amendment that you can give to your soil. So what that does, that structures the water. It allows for the biome and the fungome to actually do their little alchemical thing in your soil, so you get more output, more yield with what you plant in it.
So would you call that fertilizer? Or is it
No,
just
it's
actually
it's not
actually just
technically
the
a
soil that-
fertilizer. It's just the carbon component of your soil. So both soil.
It's like an activator to me. I don't know. That thing turns the whole world of soil on once you put
Yeah,
it in there.
it literally does, because the way you could think of it, it's carbon. It's on a molecular level. It essentially looks like a honeycomb.
Mm-hmm.
That honeycomb can store all of the proper biome, which is just the different. Like the little bugs that we need, the different bacteria, the different fungus. And because of it, when I use the term diamagnetic stands for the charge, the type of field it gives. So it only allows the aerobic bacteria into it, which is what we want. That's the healthy bacteria. It doesn't allow any of the anaerobic bacteria. And at the same time, it absorbs all of the reactive oxygen species. So one of the things that biochar is used for in commercial settings is for cleaning water, because you just run water through biochar and it will pull out all the reactive oxygen species. It'll pull out all the metal salts like the chlorine. It'll pull out like a lot of the chemicals that are in people's pharmaceuticals stuff. So what we're selling as our carbon amendment for soil is just, we take black walnut trees, we take the cutoffs of that, we essentially make a wood chip out of it, and we cook it in a very specific type of kiln. And that gives us a real pyrolyzed carbon, and we have a 98% conversion rate, which means when you buy that biochar, 98% of it is actual biochar. Which
is like, you need to tell them that's like, most people don't have any idea what you're saying when it comes to like the level of like excellency when you're thinking about something with that high of a number. But yeah, it's nowhere, it's unparalleled in the industry as far as numbers.
I can say that we're the only ones that are doing it. And so that's why it's taken me so long since I moved back to the States to get us to this point. But the best thing, that the way you can think of it, the way it can be relatable to you, is just like whenever you have dug into good soil, it's looked dark and rich. Mm-hmm. Well, the darkness and the richness of it is this black carbon. And so back in the day when there were a lot more natural practices going on, there were like things that would actually put carbon back in the soil. And so ever since we've been under like this little season delusion, they've inverted carbon. They've made carbon the enemy. Well, that's a problem because every living thing is made out of carbon. Right. So when they say that we need to reduce carbon, they're saying we need to reduce life. And yep. I've known this for 16 years now. I'm just like, no. If they're going to tell me to reduce carbon, if they're going to say carbon is the problem, I actually know carbon is the solution. It's just like they tell us radioactive stuff is bad for us. They're lying to us. Our enemy is always trying to make what would benefit us. They invert it. They make it. Yeah. So Bill Gates isn't your friend. That's probably the best thing I can say. So our soil amendment's incredible. In fact, like if you were to get toxic shock, like say you were to eat something that was poisonous, when you would go to the hospital, they would give you activated carbon. Well, activated carbon is biochar. So
it's not as good.
It's not as good. Yeah, theirs is a lower quality. And the reason why is that when you put that activated carbon in your body, it immediately pulls anything that's positively ionized, which is a free radical, which is a poison, into it. And it has nearly infinite porosity, which means it has a ton of surface area to absorb all these things. So when we actually put that in our soil, it protects the roots of our plants. It structures all the water that goes to it. Like I said, it allows the microbes, and it allows all the fungus and all the mycelium to do all the work, where in normal soils that don't have carbon, you have to use some sort of chemical to trick the plant to grow. Yeah. And this is the much more natural way. And then like we were talking about electroculture, because it's so diamagnetic, it actually attracts something called the telluric energy. And telluric just means magnetic. And like we live in an electromagnetic world. So when you attract a magnetic field, the Earth's magnetic field, you're increasing the electrical potential. So when you do both, when you add, these beautiful, the real simple copper antennas that a lot of people put up, or the more elaborate ones that a lot of people build, you're essentially taking the potential that's in the air above us, and then you're actually creating a condenser of sorts with the biochar in your soil, and that amplifies the electrical potential that will go into the plant through the roots.
Yeah, because you have the one big thing that I know from, like, everybody talks about, chemtrails and different things in the atmosphere and aerosols and stuff, but what those rain down through acidic rain, a lot of people know acid rain. That'd be a simple way of talking about the end results of that. Is one aspect would be acid rain. Acid rain has a lower pH, right, which is going to erode different minerals. So what used to be safe in wells and aquifers and things like that, my clients, I tell them, put the the filters in there for the whole house. They pull out their filters, the big ones that they have on their inline, and now they find out that, they're covered completely in rust. They're fully covered in the, what looks like rust, but it's the iron content. So the things that are doing with the erosion now, it's becoming like a dielectric blocker, just kind of like fluoride is a dielectric blocker to the body and our impedance through our body. Same thing happens in the soil. So, electroculture, yes. Is it going to be something that kind of cheats because your soil is already inhibited? It doesn't have the ability, the potential to do it. But if you add the carbon to it, one, it's the foundation for me. But also it's more than the foundation because it's the facilitator, right? It's allowing everything that's in your soil to start working again. And it's giving the base of the nutrients, because all the base of the nutrients that needs to mix with everything else, whether it's water structuring it into a crystalline structure. That's one reason why things don't go, and you get a lot of root rot and things like that. And then, so it's the facilitator and the thing that turns things back on. But big, if you're getting into electroculture, the best way to pair it would be, even if you're isolating soil, like if you're getting a certain fabric pot or a certain thing that you're using to kind of contain these things, or above ground planters or whatever, this will allow your soil to work with the electroculture in a much more potent way. That's what I'm excited about, because I've already noticed just with mine, like when I burn my fires through the winter, I take the ash and I spread it around my whole property onto all my favorite plants and different things like that. And of course, when we talked the first time, he was talking about, I think carbon's the issue, and all these alarm bells like went off in my head about different things that have happened, because you get pH lockout, you get things that doesn't attract the right nutrients, you get things that don't work in the soil, all these issues. But then I was like, man, I wonder how much would be counteracted just by the natural immunity, like microbiome. When you think about it, it's like the balance in the little guys that run your whole machine inside of there. And so I'm excited. I've already started opening it and getting to use it. I just started going with it. I'm building my wife some above ground planters and different things like that we're going to do. We're getting a big greenhouse built onto the side of my house. So I'm excited because we're going to have that flow into the house to where it's open into our outside covered porch, where all year, even in the winter, we'll have that feeding through the house. We'll have the ability to walk out there in the winter and be able to do it. My son can go play with his lizards out there and stuff like that, but this is really cool. Something I didn't expect. It was like a treat to meet you and to learn about this, because it's one aspect. I'm going to be honest with you. I have just played with it, like I said, with wood ash, but this is like, to make it a foundational piece in there, it's going to be pivotal. I can't wait.
Wood ash is incredible because it's actually the mineral reduction at the end. It's after you get rid of the carbon. So wood ash by weight is like 95% calcium with a little bit of mineral left over. The nice thing about biochar is the carbon with the mineral.
Cool.
So when you pyrolyze it, what makes our product so unique is that our kiln actually does real pyrolysis, which means it's fixed carbon. I wear shirts all the time that saying fixing carbon. It's because when you fix the carbon, that means it's stable. So people are always asking me, like, what's the difference between biochar and charcoal? Well, charcoal it's not fixed. It will degrade when water hits it, when anything that gives an oxidative stress, that will degrade. Biochar doesn't degrade because during the process of making it, the only oxidative stress it was under was heat.
Wow.
So it's stable. So every year that you use it, you're building your carbon matrix. It doesn't go away unless it gets, washed away. But if you're doing raised beds, you'll see that the carbon every year grows and grows and grows. You don't lose it like other things that are essentially nitrogen based.
Who would you say the ideal person is, like, looking for this product? I mean, because
a gardener, like
so
me.
somebody who has, like, I mean, from a small garden to a large one.
Yeah. I would say, because we have our business to business arrangements, that's not what I'm focusing on right now. But like, I'm trying to get people to have victory gardens since we're at war. Like the whole thing with the victory garden, I was brought up when my great grandparents would talk about having a little 1/4 acre and growing all the food for the family. In World War II, they called them victory gardens. I really think with how expensive food is getting these days, and the lack of nutrients in the food, that we all need to take it upon ourselves to grow like our cucumbers and our bell peppers and our tomatoes, and like actually start giving nutrition back to our children and giving nutrition back to our family. And that's who I'm actually focusing on. I want gardening to become like, I want it, one, to not be seen as some arduous thing because it doesn't need to be. Like, you know, Josh, you were doing, I've known friends that were in the middle of Shanghai that were doing hydroponics in their studio apartments. Like, anybody can garden. Like, you just need like a little space with some light and some water and some decent, you know, medium for the roots. Like, for me, I'm focusing on people that have a little bit of land that can do some raised beds, or even if they're going directly into the ground. If, say, they have some orchards or some trees that they want to revitalize, you can top dress with this product. And just kind of like signal the land that you understand what is needed for nutrition.
And I can float this. I'm not going to be wrong in saying I can use it either as a trickle in kind of like pass through filter type for my hydroponic, as well as I could float it for just a pure structure right inside of the water. And
yeah, especially if you're doing aquaponics, because I came up in aquaponics. And like you could think of your aquaponics solution as being like it's like an inoculant for the biochar. It's
so I could just feed my pass-through filter for my turtle tank with. I'm going to do that right after we get off.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I'm definitely gonna have to talk to the wife about getting some, and so we can.
Well, food, like think about what bell peppers cost, dude. Yeah, like just a beautiful bell pepper now. Like when I go to my organic market, it's like $4. One pepper.
How come this podcast is going long now? But I want to ask one more question. How come when you grow like jalapenos in your own garden, how come they're usually not very hot?
Oh, that's
you got the wrong variety.
Yeah, is it? And sometimes the same variety when I've grown them, like one pepper will have seeds of all different kinds of spice and whatever, and it'll change through the batches. And because we had certain ones at Nana's house in Palm Springs where she had just a set of them. And then some of them would be insanely hot off the same plant, and some would be mild, and then we would take the hot ones and grow it, and you could get varieties that would go to it, but just off your standard plant, like on a loose grow with like loose propagation and stuff, it's going to be all over the place. At least
it's all over the map. Because I remember we grew some in our garden, and they were, and I was like, these are not
lame.
Like
they were
lame
peppers.
I did read that doesn't have something to do with like the stress that the plant's under too, that you can make them hotter.
You can't.
It has everything to do with your HOA. Your HOA was like, no hot peppers, bro.
That makes sense.
Done.
Well, anyways, so obviously, guys, I'll leave the links in for Topher's YouTube channel and also his product if you guys are looking to get biochar. And obviously, I would be very interesting to see if we can get some some testimonials afterwards. If you guys do check that out, try the copper and the biochar together and see. Especially if you already got a garden, to see how much potentially you can get more yield and to see how that goes. But this was a lot of fun, Topher. I'll definitely have to have you back on. This was
awesome.
Yeah, it was a great topic. We could have talked all day, but once again, guys, I really appreciate you guys watching. If you guys want to support this podcast, please check out the sponsor of this podcast, Modern Roots Life. Support Josh Truex, my buddy, and support your own health and this podcast. That's win-win-win. But anyways, regardless, guys, I really appreciate you guys watching. All you guys do for this community. Love you guys. God bless.
Take care, guys.
Ciao.